Survivor's ready. Go!
Travis spoken.
Boston Rob and Amber are gonna do it.
This is a business trip, as I like to say.
You Brad Culpepper.
I'm tired of you and the fucking chicken.
You can call me the puppet master. They can be my little puppets.
It's not like you're making me feel the devil here. You get to milk your own milk, I guess.
We got enough rocks here, too. We could build a pretty decent shelter just using rocks.
I'm supposed to talk loud with you. You understand that better?
Direct from Hobart, it's time for the only Survivor podcast in Australia dedicated to Survivor, bringing you the latest interviews, episodes, and opinions from the greatest reality show on the planet. It's Survivor Oz, and here's your host.
Hello and welcome to another Survivor Oz recap episode. I am your host, Ryan Brink, sitting in the chair this week again for Ben Woodworth, who is going to be away for a little bit, but hopefully back soon. Until then, your ears are going to be stuck with my voice for the at least this week and last week. If you haven't checked out last week's podcast with Billy Garcia, make sure you go back and do that. It was a really fascinating talk with Billy. He's a great guy, and check that out. This week on the podcast, we're talking to the one, the only, Teresa T-Bird Cooper. Someone who I know I personally loved and was so disappointed didn't make it back to second chances. So if you are someone who loves Teresa T-Bird Cooper, I hope you enjoy this upcoming episode. But before we jump to our interview with T-Bird Cooper, I just want to go through a bit of housekeeping. If you're someone who is subscribed to us on iTunes at Survivor Oz, and you haven't been on our website for a while, come check us back out at www.survivoroz.com. Last season, we actually updated the website from the blog format that it was to a more interactive styled website, and it's really fantastic. And we've been getting some really good comments lately on our website, which we're super pleased with. One of the articles that's been really hot this week has been our top 10 players with minimal edits by Patty G, our American Ozlet, and that was a really interesting, detailed article talking about players who've made it into the game pretty far but didn't really have huge edits, but we felt like maybe they did. So, really interesting article. Go check that out. And if you're someone who likes this episode or dislikes this episode, sure to tag me in your post on Twitter at YesRyanB. I'm sure you might love or hate this podcast, which is perfectly fine. I never proclaim to be the professional expert that Ben is, but hopefully we'll have our hashtag starting, hashtag bring back Ben, and he'll come back to the chair very soon and conduct these interviews. But until then, you have me in your ears last week and this week. Who knows in the future? Hope you enjoy this podcast with Teresa T-Bird Cooper. I'm sure it's going to be a good one. So on the line today, we have one of our favourites, Teresa T-Bird Cooper. Teresa, how are you going today?
Hey, Ryan, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on Survivor Oz again. I love the show, the program. I love you guys, so thank you.
No, thank you so much for coming. And we had a few technical issues starting, so I really appreciate you hanging on and helping us get through that.
Absolutely.
So, Teresa, what have you been up to lately?
Well, I'm a flight attendant with Delta Airlines, so I fly to Europe every week because I'm a German speaker with Delta, so my route is in Germany. And a matter of fact, this week I usually am always off, or I usually always get in on Wednesday so I can cover and watch Survivor and everything. But this week I actually flew out Wednesday, so it was all I could do, Ryan, to make sure I didn't hear anything about the show. You know, looking through the different social media, I didn't want to see anything on that either before I got home yesterday and was able to watch it. And believe it or not, Ryan, I was able to get back home and see it without hearing anything about it. So it was great.
That's pretty amazing. I know here in Australia, we get a telecast of Survivor around 6 hours afterwards, after it's aired in the United States. So I'm usually at work during that time, so I'm always on a social media blackout the day of Survivor, just waiting to get home because I don't want to be spoiled at all. But yeah, it can be tricky. It's very tricky today because there are so many things that we are connected to online that it's hard to kind of avoid spoilers, but it seems like you did okay.
Yes, I did. Now, you know, it's so funny because with Second Chances, I knew, of course, all the people that were out there. And I knew a lot about what happened and who was going off, you know, before I watched the show, just from the connections I had from the people. And it's a whole different, when you're watching it, there's a whole different element to it when you're watching it and actually don't have any clue who's going off. And it's actually, you know, a lot of times I think people like this, some people like the spoilers. And I'm telling you, to watch it without the spoilers makes it really, to me, so much more interesting.
No, I completely agree. Like, my preseason prediction for who I thought was going to win was Liz, and I was hoping that she would do well, and then to see her go this week was like, it was disappointing, but it's also exciting that you have an assumption on what might happen and it doesn't happen. So it's nice to just come in with a fresh mind and just see how it plays out in the game without having any inside information.
Right, Ryan, that is so funny because my pick to win also, because I'm looking at my notes here, was Liz as well. I got a big star by her name. And also who I thought would be right there with her was Jennifer. Well, so they're third voted out. Are you kidding me? How good am I at looking at this and being able to predict? Terrible.
I know.
That's funny that you picked Liz as well.
I just liked her pre-game interviews. I thought they were really fascinating. She seems very intelligent, and I think she is. But we'll probably get into that, why maybe she didn't do as well. We're talking a little bit about your second chances. How difficult was that to watch while it was airing, knowing you were so close to getting on?
It wasn't difficult at all as I was watching it, Ryan, because when it started, I had, from May until it actually aired in September to work through it, if you will. So, once it got to that point, it was fine. I mean, I was so excited for all the people that were out there. And of course, it's not just a player. Was a fan before I was a player, and I'm still a fan. So to be able to watch it with the fantastic cast that was out there, I was able to look at it, put it in a different place, if you know what I mean. So yeah. It was fun. I'll tell you, the first month or so was, I was heartbroken. I'll be honest with you. I was really, really wanting and hoping to be out there, and it wasn't meant to be. Of course, we all knew what we signed up for with the vote, but I had listened to. I know you guys are familiar with Rob Cesternino and his podcast as well, and I had listened to that the day of the show, so I kind of bought into him because I know he's does a lot of gets a lot of information from people, and he does. I think he rated me like one of the first couple of women to go out there that would make the vote. So Ryan, big mistake that I listened to that, because I thought, shoot, if Cesternino and the guy that he has that was doing all the review of the players, if he's got me going out there, second or third, and all I've got to make is the top 10, I think this is a good sign. Well, actually, I think they were about dead on accurate with who they had coming in and who they had, the bottom ones that didn't make it, except for where I placed. So, what are you going to do? Never say die. I'm still hoping that was just kind of a, stepping stone to get me back out there, because, the show Africa aired over 15 years ago. That is a long time ago in Survivor years. So now I'm back out there. So hopefully, I'm hoping that my chance will come again.
No, it's perfectly fine that you mentioned Rob's podcast. I know that I'm a huge fan of Rob myself, and I'm actually a patron of his group and support him. I know, listening to that podcast, I think he had you ranked third on his list for those possible for going back. So yeah, it was a surprise to us. I think Shane as well was the big surprise that didn't get to go back out there. But I know that a lot of us were super disappointed you didn't get a chance to have that second chance this time. But I'm sure it's not the end of the road. If they came back to you and said, we want to try second chances again, we're going to use the same concept, would you be willing to put yourself through that again?
Absolutely. You know what? Ryan, I guess it's a personality defect. It's kind of, for me, the harder something comes to me, the harder it is, the more appealing it is. And it doesn't make me shy away from it, or it just makes me, actually, it pushes me harder to want to do it again and try it again. So, and I'm that way with a lot of things. So, I know a few people have said they wouldn't go back out there again. But for me, as badly as I want to play, you've got to put yourself out there. And if I tell you, if it happened and I didn't get the vote the second time, then obviously the fans don't want to see me. And at that point, I just need to let it go. So, but not yet. Not yet, Ryan.
We saw Vitas go first in that season, and he come out afterwards and said he kind of wished he hadn't have got on. How do you kind of feel about that? And I guess if you were to go on Survivor and be one of the early boots, would you still think it'd be worth your time? Would you still be pleased to have that experience?
You know, Brian, I guess there's several ways to look at that. I had actually talked to myself about that before second chances, before the votes were, before we knew what the votes were. And I thought, all right, T-Bird, you have a chance to go, but you're going to be the first boot. Do you still go? And I thought, shoot, who wants to be the first boot? I mean, somebody's got to be the first boot. I thought, well, I guess I kind of look at it this way. Yes, I want to play again so desperately. I think Survivor is a perfect psychological game. And by the way, I majored in psychology. That's my major. So I've always been fascinated with the game, social politics and the way it mirrors life. It mirrors life just perfectly to me. So yes, with second chances, to go out there out of the 20 people and be the first boot off, you still have to walk away with it. It may take a little while, and you have to think, okay, there's been almost, 450 people that have played the game, somewhere between 400 to 500. If you get a second chance and you're one of the 10 women to get that second chance out of 250 women, you take it. Absolutely. You were still thought of by CBS, by Jeff Probst, by Lynn Spillman, by Mark Burnett being one of the favorites of the women. I don't think that's anything to sneeze at.
No, exactly right. And I feel like, I know there's been some rumblings within the internet community recently that there might be talk of having maybe a fans versus favourites or an all-star maybe in an upcoming season soon. So I know for me, my fingers are crossed firmly that you're going to be one of these people who is back on the list and hopefully getting your second chance.
Thank you, Ryan. I'm hoping the same thing. Again, I really am. So thank you for that. That means a lot.
So can I just ask, I know we're here for a recap on this new season, but it's just brand new and you have such an interesting take on the last season. Can I just get your overall impression on that season as a whole?
Oh, gosh. It's funny. Once the season's over, I kind of put it up on the shelf. It's funny. Over time, I think a lot of times people will remember different people in the cast, but sometimes we'll even forget who the winner was. Now, no, I have not forgotten that Jeremy won. I thought he was fantastic. I loved him. But there are a lot of the players I love. But I love the show because to watch players that you've seen before play, then watch them come back and all these great players play against each other, I thought it was a fantastic season. And so, Ryan, I thought, wow, Probst is going to have, I wonder how much difficulty he's going to have coming in for this next season of Cambodia after coming off of that one, the second chances. But I tell you what, even though we're just 3 episodes in, I think they've done it. I think it will at least equal it because the cast is phenomenal, which they always have these fantastic casts. And I've kind of found I've realized that a lot of these people now, with so many of them, usually it takes me about midway through the season to start really realizing who some of these players are. But not with this season. I think they've done a good job from even the very first episode presenting these characters to us. So I kind of feel like I've warmed up to all of them, even after 3 shows, which is pretty remarkable.
It's been really fascinating the way they've showed this season. I guess the last season was such a strategically based season, and I guess we had preconceived notions of who players were, so they didn't really go into probably explaining who the characters were. But in this season, I've been really impressed how they've demonstrated and showed individuals and from each tribe as well. I don't think there's a tribe that we don't know individual characters. And I think from the first episode, we had at least one scene with each player, which was really different and really nice. I'm thinking that this season in itself it appears to be more of a social game than a strategic game. Can you talk about maybe the differences between what we're seeing last season, which was really strategic, and this season where we're seeing more of a social game happening?
I don't know, Ryan, if it's because the chances were all, players that are not just, these are players that wanted it really badly. So Mark Burnett says he cast A-type players, and you figure these are the A-types that are out there for a second chance. They want it more than ever. Not to say they didn't want it the first time around, because I feel sure they did. And when you play the first time, I think I've heard Probst say to people that are playing the first time. Play like it's your second time playing. And I think now we can kind of understand what he means by that. So I think the difference is, a lot of times people will say with this cast now, well, they didn't see second chances, so maybe they're not doing the voting blocks and all that. But I think too, it has something to do with it's their first time out there. So you can watch it as a fan, but once you're thrown out there, it's a whole different game.
And we've seen this season already that it seems to be, and they've talked about the brutality of this season and how there's going to be medevacs, and we've been pre-warned, which was very interesting coming into the season, that it's going to be a hard season. In the first episode, we saw two events that I found really fascinating, and I really want to get your take on this first one, and that was Aubrey. And we saw Aubrey, she was a little dehydrated, but more so she was having an anxiety attack. I don't know from your own season, I know 15 years ago now, but in general, do you feel like a lot of survivors face this anxiety when they first hit the beach, or in your case, I don't even know, a landlock or wherever they are?
Where are we anyway?
Yeah.
That's big. I would think you would see more of that than we see. I don't think we see that much. I don't remember seeing it in Africa, and I don't really remember seeing it with most of the cast since. But you can see, depending on, all of a sudden when it's real and you've built it up in your mind and then bam, it's thrown out there, I would think it would happen more than it does. So, but, Aubrey, certainly was really interesting to watch her, but as I'm watching her personality unfold, it kind of makes sense that she may have been a little difficult for her, because I remember on the, watching this week's show, who was it that said, Liz, that said that she can't even really get Audrey to talk even much about the game at all. So, I guess everybody reacts differently. I mean, look at the difference between the way, did I say, it's Aubrey, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Aubrey. I may have said Audrey. I didn't mean to. Aubrey. Look at the way Aubrey is, and I'll just use somebody from her, from her tribe, and then look at Liz, or look at Debbie. So, again, the personalities are so diverse and so different, and that's what we love, and that's why casting does such a phenomenal job. And
you're talking about the casting for this season, and we've talked about it a little bit, but I think a lot of credit has to go to Lynn Spielman for how great and how many great characters she does find for this show, season after season after season. What are we now, 32 seasons in, and for her to still find really fresh and interesting people to place in this show, it's a real credit to her for the longevity of it.
Yeah, and a lot of people might think, well, hey, she's got a huge pool to pick from. Look at the amount of people that apply. But still, you have to narrow down the personality type, and to match 18 people up, or 20, however many you have for that season, to match up and try to have 18 diverse personalities from different walks of life, from different parts of the country, with a wide range of personality traits, that takes a lot. I mean, so even if you have 500, 1,000, which she's got a lot more than that to choose from, she's still got to narrow it down to these personalities that are going to be, fun for all of us to watch. And yes, she's obviously very good at what she does. And you can, you see how Survivor has done so well over the years, and she's been casting since the start. So she's doing what she's supposed to be doing to be in that position for as long as she has been.
The other really, I guess, scary moment that we saw, and that was originally in the first episode as well, was the bug in Jennifer's ear. And you mentioned Jennifer was one of the people that you liked originally.
Yep.
I don't know how you felt watching that scene, but for me, as someone who's a pretty anxious person in general life, watching and seeing a bug inside your ear and not having medical really appear to do anything for at least a night, it really talks to the brutality of Survivor and the difficulty that these contestants do face. I think that sometimes as a watcher and someone who hasn't been out there, we forget that 24 hours on the show where you're actually out there can go in 5 minutes on the show. So what were your thoughts when you were seeing this little bug walk inside and outside of her ear?
Well, it's funny. the first thing I thought was Jennifer looks like she's tough as nails. So to see her the way she was reacting, I thought, wow, that's really affecting her mentally, physically, every way possibly. I mean, every way that it could. So that was interesting. And I'm sure she probably could have gotten medical out there. But again, I think we, again, know what we signed up for, and you really don't want any reason to be pulled out of the game. I don't know. I mean, I tell you what stands out the most to me was when Sydney was standing behind her yelling in her ear, and I'm like, really? Why? That was really, that was my first introduction to Sydney. And other than that, I didn't actually see her play until this third episode, and I thought she did a fantastic job, and her personality is now evolving. But the first thing that I remember about Sydney was her, yelling in her ear, and I'm thinking, just why don't help her? Help her! Anyway.
So, just getting back a little bit and talking about this concept for the start of the season, that's Brains, Beauty, and Brawn. What are your feelings on this concept as a whole, and do you think it was too soon to bring it back after KKR, which was only a couple of seasons ago?
You know what? If the cast works out for it, which it did, obviously, then no, I really don't. I mean, it worked out perfectly, because look at the great cast, the way they divided it up into these three groups, and how it fits. The Brains are especially fantastic. They did a great job on the Brains tribe. And, the Brawn tribe as well, great. Now, the Beauty tribe has got, I'm sure we'll talk about them. And my favorite character, one of my two favorite characters, Ty, God love him. I think he's an absolute doll. I love him. I love him. Beauty, again, his spirit and his soul and his everything is as beautiful as you can get. So I love it. I think it's a great, it was quick to bring it back, but it fit. These characters all fit in these three categories, so I think it's great.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. You mentioned Ty. We'll jump straight in and we'll talk a little bit about the Beauty tribe. Ty's been a really fascinating character so far this season. He's got the most confessionals so far in 3 episodes. He's had 17 confessionals at an average of nearly 6 an episode, which is pretty amazing. And we've seen his character kind of evolve from the first episode where he seemed like he was kind of on the outs to this week where he really was seen as maybe like a strong pivot point in his tribe, where we saw that compassion that he had for the chicken and understanding that his fellow contestants needed that protein. What did you think about that scene and watching Ty? And I guess how the other tribe mates reacted to his reaction?
I I'm almost don't even know where to start with Ty. I love the character. And I think that, like you said, there are people that go out there that feel a certain way about whatever and they won't participate. But I thought Ty did say, that the boys, I think he said the boys need the protein for the challenges. And, Caleb was real compassionate to the way Ty felt, which, has brought me, closer to Caleb as a character. I loved Ty's and Caleb's relationship together, and the girls seemed really compassionate for the way Ty was feeling. But that he held the chicken down so lovingly for Caleb and referencing the circle of life, and I thought it was fantastic. I mean, it really showed us the whole tribe, and it showed us a little bit about Nick. I think we've learned a little about Nick watching the way he's reacted to all this as well. So, again, I love Ty. And again, and for Caleb and the two of them to bond together and seem like they're the most opposite two guys in the whole world, it's fantastic. You can't, casting can't make this up. They can cast these great characters, but they have no idea how they're going to bond once they're out there. So I wonder if they ever had a clue that Ty and Caleb would have bonded like they have.
So we had a little bit of background on Caleb, and he's come from Big Brother. What is your feelings about players or recruiting coming from other reality TV shows onto a show like Survivor?
Well, you don't see it very much, so that tells me that Caleb was somebody that's been in there eyes and in their watch for a while. So, I don't have anything. I think, again, casting, especially the CBS casting, they move them around occasionally. I think, you hear about Amazing Race and people that auditioned for Amazing Race, and then they said, hey, we think you'd be great on Survivor, and probably vice versa. But again, you don't see that many coming from Big Brother or Amazing Race over to Survivor, which means, again, I say, Caleb has a special place with casting, so he obviously is going to be really a fun character to watch.
Yeah, and he has been really fascinating. I agree that coming into this season, I hadn't been a Big Brother watcher, but listening to a lot of people discuss and talk about Caleb online, that there seemed to be a lot of a negative perception about how he would be. But I got to say, I've been completely shocked at the way he's been. He's been really respectful of Ty. I love that relationship he's got. And this week we saw the three girls who all have a very tight relationship. We saw Anna, I believe it was, go to Caleb and ask him to join their alliance.
Right.
How do you feel he's positioned in the game at the moment?
I think it's great. I mean, right now, looking at him, you would think that Nick, matter of fact, before I even watched the show last night, I remember thinking, Nick's probably, if Beauty loses, I bet Nick's going to be out. So I think he's positioned himself in a beautiful way. And of course, I think Ty is also. Now, what's going to happen if they end up getting Nick out? Now, that's going to be interesting to watch. But I think Ty and Caleb are going to be thick as thieves, sticking to one another. So it'll be interesting to see how strong Anna, Julia, and Michelle's alliance really is.
So you're talking about Nick, and we've mentioned it a couple of times now. His reaction to the whole chicken situation and Ty's emotional reaction to that, I found really fascinating, because as someone who proclaims to be quite intelligent and aware, his social awareness was pretty poor, and he couldn't actually read the room that the other members on his tribe were feeling what Ty was feeling. So do you think that puts a marker on his head and makes him stand out compared to the other members of his tribe who seem to have compassion towards each other?
Absolutely, because when it comes down to going to tribal council, and you've got to have somebody to vote off, any reason somebody can find, and the others, if none of them had compassion except for Nick, that may be different. But all of them had compassion except for Nick, so that kind of puts him as the outsider. And then one of the girls even said, that about his smile, that his smile doesn't even look real. So, I think what he said was that a lot of his friends say that he's like a robot and he's cold-hearted. But I think he mentioned he just needs to let the other people think that he has emotions. You got to remember, these players that are out there are dummies. They're social players. They're going to see what's real, who's real and who's not, especially when you're stripped of everything in a game like Survivor. It isn't going to take long to realize what he's all about. So, yeah, I worry about Nick. And wasn't his emotional item a picture of himself?
It's...
Okay, I don't even know what to say about that. So, that's interesting. Hey, you know what, Ryan? You know what was so cute? When Ty, he was so cute. When he found his idol and he was kissing the tree and thank you, tree, come to Papa. I mean, he just says the cutest things. And then when he did that with the chicken and he held the chicken down and so tenderly, again, I say that, he said, I felt like I did wrong. He said, I did a lot of wrong. Oh, that was so cute.
It's just nice to genuinely see, and I know there was initial complaints about why was Ty on the beauty tribe, but you can see why he's on the beauty tribe, because it's his inner beauty that really shines through compared to the others. He's just such a genuinely compassionate, nice individual, and it's great to see on our TV screen someone who cares about the environment, cares about what is going on around him. It's just refreshing.
Well, I hope it is, and I love him, his energy, his spirit, his everything about him, and I hope that he stays in the game a long time, and I also hope that Debbie stays in so that they end up on the same tribe, because the two of them together is going to be some entertainment.
Let's talk a little bit more about Ty, and I just wanted to talk about him finding that idol, and you mentioned that then. And last week we saw that he found the box for the idol. I was a little confused. I thought the idol might have been in the tree, but it was just a key. And we saw him climbing up the tree. I know last week I was thinking, oh, why is it so high? It's going to be so hard. Stupid me, I didn't realize you could probably just use a stick and poke it out. But how do you feel like the idol in general is going to be used this season? So we know that if you have two idols, it can be used as a super idol after the vote. What kind of twist or benefit do you think that's going to provide this game?
Thought about it. So in order, though, the two idols have to come together. They have to come together. So I thought, shoot, say now Jason's got half the idol, and then Ty. Of course, Ty's easy to work with. I mean, he looks like he'd be easy. He's a team player. But then you got to figure, two of these idols have to come together. That means two of these players have to come together and be in an alliance, if you will, or a voting block to save the other person. So it's going to be interesting to see if it even comes down to happen. Because half the idol's not going to help you. You can't do anything with one half the idol. Is that right?
Well, you can use it as a normal idol.
You can?
Yeah, so you can use it like a normal idol, but if you have two of the idols, you can use it like a super idol, kind of like what Tony had a couple of seasons ago, the Yul Kwan type idol, where you can use it after the vote. Okay,
apparently I didn't read the fine print. Yes. So sorry about that, Ryan. I do stand corrected. So I'm just wondering if it'll come down. And this is my prediction, but also remember with my prediction that I predicted to win, and the other girl, they're gone. Mm-hmm. So take this with a grain of salt. My prediction is going to be that the two idols will not come together, that each person will end up using it individually. That's just what I'm saying. I don't know if that's going to happen, but that's my opinion. But again, knowing that I picked Liz and Jennifer to go to the end, take it for what it's worth, which is not a whole lot.
So we are talking about the idol, so let's jump over to the Braun tribe. And on the Braun tribe this week, we actually saw a bit of idol action, and we saw Alicia with Sydney, and they were I don't know what they were doing, scourging through the jungle, and Alicia comes across a clue for the idol. Now, straight away, she was by herself. She could have hidden it, but she decided to share it with Sydney. What do you think about her deciding to make that decision straight away and share it with Sydney?
I'm not sure. I guess maybe she felt like since the two guys were so tight with each other. But to me, in my opinion, I don't think you should never give that information to anybody. Unless maybe, for example, she sees what you're doing and there's no way to get away from it, then you don't have a choice. But to find a clue, to find the idol, to have an idol, I think you should keep it to yourself. Period. Just like Wentworth did in Second Chances. Keep it to yourself. Too many people's game changes when they let other people know about that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that what Wentworth has done is she's pretty much set the standard for what and how you play an idol. Obviously, they hadn't seen that season because it was filmed before Second Chances. So I guess going forward, it's going to be interesting to see how people play idols and have idols, but Alicia decided to share that idol clue with Sydney, and Sydney's a very fascinating character. The first week I didn't know really what to make of her, but as we've gone on, she seems to be someone who is quite intelligent, and she has brawn as well, so she's an interesting package. And we saw this week that she played it up and she tried to get Alicia to go back to camp, find the shovel, all while she was actually sitting on top of the box that had the idol in it. What do you think about what Sydney was trying to do there?
Yeah, I thought it was great. I mean, I think it was great how she went back, as she was covering it up, as she went back, and she told the guys right away, because if she hadn't have told the guys right away, Jason and Scott, then they would have figured she was going and forming an alliance with Alicia. So, yeah, I'm with you. I think Sydney's playing a great game. And for somebody that I didn't know anything about except her yelling in Jennifer's ear, I think she's a great character and a very smart, savvy player too.
Yeah, I've been really impressed. And so she's gone back and she's told both Scott and Jason that the clue, the box is there and the clue's there. So we see Scott and Jason run back off into the jungle and they find the box and they read the clue and they find out that they need to get the key down from the tree. And Scott, being a basketball player, he's already got that reach, so he was able to prod it out with a stick. I guess in the previews we kind of saw, I don't know, like a fracas or a confrontation between Alicia and Jason. It didn't play out like that in the show, which I was really pleased about. I was glad there was no real physical action between the two, which was positive. But we've seen now that Jason got the key and he collected the idol. It's fascinating, I guess, which is different to Ty, is that everyone on that tribe now knows that Jason has the idol. How do you think that's going to impact on his game?
Yeah, you know what? I'm not sure. I just remembered watching the show what, we see right now that Scott and Jason really have a bond, and they kind of, actually, they retrieved the idol together, thanks to Alicia, and then, even though Jason has it in his possession, even Scott kind of makes it feel like it's his too. And in one of the sound bites, or actually one of his confessionals, Scott said, well, I know that Jason will take care of me. And for whatever reason, that stood out to me right away, that they chose that one thing to say. Because, these confessionals go on for a long time. They pick bits and pieces to play. So that he actually made a point to say, but I know Jason will take care of me, makes me think, I don't know. Sure. There's something to be continued, I'm sure. We'll see. But that just stands out from what Scott said.
Yeah, I don't know about that, so I guess we'll have to wait and see. It's fascinating, I guess. We've talked about the idol and how that if you have two idols, you can use them as a super idol. So it's fascinating to see that Scott and Jason have this close bond that they're sharing, and whether that if they were to both get an idol each, do you think that they would play it together as a super idol if one of them was in trouble?
Yeah, I do. I think if both of them had it, but Jason's got one unless they come up with another one later on. And Ty's got the one, unless every idol that's found can be added to another one. Do you think that'll be the case? I guess it has to be.
I think so. I think as long as you've got two idols, I think they'll probably fit in together and make the one.
Well, that'll make it, that's why I guess it'll be interesting as the three tribes come down and, to two and then come down to one. Then you'll really see how people are pulling together to bring their idols together. So yeah, that'll make it really interesting.
So we're just going back to Scott a little bit, and we've seen how you mentioned that scene, and I was going to talk about it, how he said he'll trust Jason, that he'll look after him in the future. Scott has come into this game. He's obviously a recruit. He's a former professional NBA player, played in the NBA for a long time. I don't think he has a great grasp of Survivor probably him applying and being on the show or getting asked and casted on the show. Do you feel that maybe he's a bit naive to believe that someone like Jason will look after him? Jason is a bounty hunter. He seems like he's someone is pretty self-interested. He described himself, Jason, as someone who wants to play a Russell Hantz game. I guess he's already got one idol, so he's on the way to playing that kind of a game. Do you feel like Scott's being too naive in trusting Jason this much?
I think he might be, but, Scott, after I learned watching the very beginning of the show this week, he was explaining to Alicia that but I voted for you, is what he said. I voted for you because I told Jennifer I wouldn't vote against her. And Alicia just couldn't figure that out, knowing that Jennifer was going to get all the votes. But like Scott said, I'm a loyal person. So he's trying to play the way he is, and that may really hurt him, especially with Jason. Scott is a pretty loyal, man of his word kind of person, but I don't think we're going to see that with Jason.
I'd agree with that as well, and something that has been a little bit talked about, but not hugely, and something that I spoke to Billy Garcia last week, and I raised with him, is the language that Jason has been using towards Alicia, and that was the constantly referring to her as Blondie. How did you feel about Jason purposely deciding to not call Alicia by her name, but kind of, I don't know, I call it a form of bullying, where he's deliberately putting her down as someone who's lesser than him by referring to her by her hair color.
Yes. Oh, I've got this totally figured out. Because I kept watching it and I'm thinking from the very beginning, here's this cute little blonde and he's demeaning her. He's talking about her. He doesn't know her. He doesn't know anything about her. Calling her blondie, calling her dumb, just all this stuff. So I had it figured out. All I could think of, she obviously looks like an ex-girlfriend or an ex-girl that he couldn't have or couldn't get or hurt his feelings or put him down. And this is who he is comparing to whoever put him down in his past life. So that's why he's doing this. It only makes sense. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that, like I told you, I'm a school teacher, so, like, when I talk to my kids about bullying, it's always usually that someone is jealous of a relationship that someone else is having, or there's been a previous relationship that they're upset with, and that's how and why they act out. So I'm just disappointed because I actually like Jason as a person. I just don't like that one little thing he's doing to Alicia, and we didn't see it too much this week, which was positive, but I would just like him to not call her Blondie all the time. I just think it's too degrading, and he's better than that. He can be better than that.
It's true. I mean, I agree with you, but that he's turned on her so quickly. Again, all I could think of is, you know, she looks like his ex-wife. She looks like an old girl. Something is intimidates. Obviously, she intimidates him. And kind of, you know what? It almost brings you back to, remember Hans, Little Hans?
Yes, Brandon.
That was intimidated by gorgeous. Remember from the very beginning, he was so intimidated with her beauty and her, that he just couldn't have her around because he was just so, and the same type of the way Jason's doing, but Jason's doing it more in a bullying fashion.
Yeah.
But very similar to the way he treated
Michaela.
God, how can I not? She is, and by the way, when you think she's attractive, when you see her in person, she is stunning.
Yeah.
She is, wow. Beautiful. You don't even see how beautiful she is on the TV until you see her in person. She is truly stunning and a very nice person. So that he treated her the way he did out there, it just, again, it reminds me of the same, similar, a little bit different, but very similar to the way Jason's doing to Alicia.
Okay, let's jump across, and we're going to talk a little bit about Brain's tribe. And I know that you said originally that they were a tribe that you've really liked so far. What have you liked about the Brain's tribe?
Oh, God, the characters are so interesting. I love Joe. I think he's fascinating. I mean, former FBI, hostage negotiator. Are you kidding me? You would think his social game, he would be able to read people like none other. He's in phenomenal shape. 72 years old, so nobody should really be threatened with him because he's 72, but, you know, I just think he's a fascinating character. Debbie, I mean, she's a character in her own. I mean, I don't even know what to say. She just tickles me beyond words. She is a casting dream when she walked in the door. They probably had to watch her for a while to say, is this for real? I love her. I think she's great. And I love that she thinks, you know, like she said, they think she's just, I think Liz described her as the court jester. How perfect was that? And then, you know, like Debbie even said, she said, you know, they think of me that way, so obviously they're not going to think I'm any problem to drag along the way. Even like Peter said, she's the perfect person to bring along because she has no gameplay. But you know what? I believe Debbie does have a little gameplay.
Okay, let's talk about her gameplay there, because I was really impressed with Debbie's gameplay this week, and that was a scene that she had with Aubrey. She was walking with Aubrey along the beach, and she says to Aubrey, unlike what Peter and Liz have done, she says to Aubrey, what do you think about Neil? Knowing full well that Neil and Aubrey already have a close relationship. And Aubrey replied, I like Neil, I trust Neil. And Debbie's response was, I agree, I also trust Neil. And I love that she presented her options and the way that she was, I don't know, manipulating, I guess you could say, but getting Aubrey to join her side by just agreeing with her. And I guess on the flip side, we saw with Liz and Peter, who were being more dictatorial in what they wanted and saying that you need to vote for who we want you to vote for. I really was impressed with how Debbie came across in that scene.
It was brilliant. That is a social game right there. It's kind of like Croak said at the end of Tribal Council last night. This is an emotional intelligence. You've got to have emotional intelligence to play this game, and an ability to, to see the social cues. And Debbie has done that. Definitely. The way she presented it was perfect. But then when she's doing her confessionals, oh, it's fantastic. How many confessionals did she have, by the way, Ryan?
Well, let me just have a quick look. I've got it up. Here. We have Debbie with 10 confessionals. She's had 5 this week, so she was a really big character on this past episode.
Oh, she's great. I love her. Like she said, I follow orders like a good soldier. I love her. She's hilarious. But she did the way she presented it, and then the way with Liz, the way she just agreed. She just agreed. Some people would be like, up in her face or saying no or this and that. She's like just agreeing. I think she's a great player. The only thing I worry about Debbie is, no, I don't know. I think the way what Peter said is she's somebody to bring along because they don't know how savvy she really is. It's just that can some of the others put up with her personality? Because when you get out there and know, especially with the climate and the surroundings being so extreme, you really have to play kind of low key because it's so easy to aggravate people. Very, very, very easy. So that's the only thing I worry about her with her energy level, that she may rub somebody the wrong way later on. Except for Ty. If she can get with Ty, they're in.
Yeah, I agree about her personality. I think that's what has actually helped her in this game so far, is because she does, I guess, have this persona as someone who's a bit quirky, who is a bit of a know-it-all, someone who knows everything, has done a lot, but she comes off in a really, I don't know, compassionate way. And something that I wanted to talk to you about earlier, but we skipped past it, was in the first episode, and I think this laid the seeds for what we saw this episode, was Aubrey having her anxiety attack, and the one person who looked after her in the shelter was Debbie. She was the one who showed that compassion, showed that empathy, where the others were walking away and doing their own things. Debbie was the one who took the time, looked after her, talked to her about what she was going through, got her fruit, got her water. And I think that, like you were talking about, the social game, it can't be understated. It's a part that I guess a lot of the super fans in the Survivor community, they want to see these strategic big moves. But to me, what Debbie did in this episode and that first episode is a small move that's helped her get into a great position.
I agree. Absolutely. I was going to say, when I was watching her, and I believe that she is, she says that she's about an expert at, about everything. Let's see, she's a chemist, a workhorse with wisdom, excellent swimmer, excellent electronics, excellent caretaker, excellent fire builder, excellent shelter builder. She's an expert. She's a Red Lobster server. Her worldly experience, Civil Air Patrol, rope climbing, 20 years of water expertise. You know what? She's a juggler. Actually, I think she really is good at all that.
Yeah.
Now at first I thought, really? But I think that she really is probably extremely, extremely bright. She's got a colorful, wild personality. I love her. I think she's great. Great TV.
So you talked a little bit about Joe before, and I just want to say, and I want to get your impression on this as well, to have someone of Joe's age out in the show, I think he was 71 when they filmed this series, to have someone of his age out on the show, what do you think about that from a casting perspective, and how do you think he's going so far?
I haven't seen too much of his play, though. I haven't seen much of the social. Now, see, I know they opened up the show with him working on his 6-pack, but, it kind of gives you wonder. I don't know. I don't know what to say about him. I think he could be in a good position because people could carry him all the way, into the finals thinking he's not a threat, because he is older. But I just don't know what his social game is. I don't know how social he is. I hadn't really seen that. I know he got into it a little bit with Liz, but after seeing Liz's personality, maybe that was warranted during that second show. But I don't know. I can't tell what his social game is yet.
Let's jump over to that other side and talk about the two who have placed themselves on the outer, and that is Liz and Peter. We saw this week that Liz and Peter, they kind of proclaimed that they were the ones who were in charge. They were just going to mold the other contestants the way they wanted to. How do you think they played, and do you think that they forgot that social aspect of the game? And that, I guess Liz is someone who comes from a numbers background, she has a degree in mathematics. Do you feel that she misread the numbers and that she didn't incorporate the social aspects into her gameplay?
I think she said she didn't, what'd she say? She said she didn't misread the numbers. What did she say about that? There was something I thought was interesting. I can't remember. But anyway, yeah, I think obviously for them to go in with that kind of cockiness, look at Peter. Who goes into Survivor being cocky when blindsides happen? If you've watched the show at all, which I'm sure they have, happens about every week now. So to go in feeling that confident, knowing anything can happen, is amazing to me. And I think what Peter say, they were going to go down with a hit list, like he was going to go down, him and Liz, like a hit list like mobsters or something. I'm like, oh, I don't know, this is going to be interesting. And then Liz was even saying how losing the challenge was actually going to be good for her and Peter. Not so good for Liz this week, that's for sure. So,
I was really fascinated by their decision to do what they did, and it kind of reminded me a little bit of a season that wasn't on too long ago. That was Survivor Karamoan, and we have the fans versus favourites, and we had the fans tribe, and we had Reynold and Eddie and the two girls that they were with at the time. They thought that they were in the majority alliance, but there was only 4 of them, and this is a 10-person tribe, and I kind of felt like we saw the same this episode where we see Liz and we see Peter, but there's only 2 of them in a 6-member tribe, and they feel like they've got the power, they've got the alliance on their side, but really it was just the 2 of them talking about everything else. And if you're going to be big nerding yourself and pretending that you're better than you are, I think the other people just realize that why don't we just join together and get these people out?
right. Well, you know what's funny? It seems like that Peter and Liz, what did Peter say that, him and Liz are good-looking people with great smiles and trolling. I'm thinking, who says that? Who actually says that? I mean, that's a very, you're going to be portrayed for the world to see, and, unless, I kind of felt like he actually believed what he was saying. Sometimes I think people go out there for the theatrics and love to ham it up and play it. But Peter and Liz, to me, don't seem that type of people. They seem like they're actually thinking they're in control and all that. So I don't know. That's interesting. And again, casting knows that before they put them out there. So that's what makes it beautiful.
So we're going to jump to that immunity challenge that we had, and it was a really fascinating one this week. It was a little different to what we've seen recently, and they had to carry these bags full of, I think they had rice inside of them from one side, get it through a wall they had to get it through, and that was really fascinating. What did you think about the challenge in general, and what was your reaction when we finally come to the conclusion that the Brains had lost and Braun had finally won a challenge and we're safe?
Well, the challenge was very strenuous, and the endurance that it took and the balance at the end, and then the whole thing was great. It kind of encompassed everything physically that you need to have, and especially even though they're only how many days in? 7 days? Let's see, 8 days in.
8 days in at that time.
Still, they're living in extreme conditions, so I was really impressed on how well they did. But what stands out with me for that was definitely the way, and I watched it actually. I rolled it back actually a couple of times because I loved it. When, when Braun won, and then you saw Alicia jump in Scott's arms, and Sydney jump in Jason's arms, and I thought that was very cool. It was cool to see the 4 of them really all come together for that win, and I loved it. I loved to see Alicia, I felt like was being included.
Yeah.
I hate to see anybody as an outcast, which she's been, and So I loved that part. I really did. And hey, especially when the brains actually, it sounded like Liz and Peter were happy they lost. So I guess everything worked out. Maybe not so much for Liz though.
We saw, and I'll go back to this because we were talking about the Brawn tribe before, but there's been talk about, and the question raised, whether with the 4 Brawns who are left, whether I guess the Brawn should be deliberately trying to lose, do a Matt Singh, and get Alicia out before going to a swap or going to a merge at some point. What are your thoughts about deliberately losing to get rid of a contestant on your tribe?
Well, we did that in Africa to get Silas out.
Yeah.
So for me, I still don't regret us doing that at all. Period. At all. But I think Alicia could easily be. I think they'd have a better chance of pulling Alicia back to them than we had with pulling Silas back into us. But unfortunately, I don't think Jason is going to warm up to that. I think Sydney and Scott could, but like I said, for whatever reason, whoever Alicia looks like in Jason's past, that's not going to happen. So that might be the best thing to happen for them, for Jason anyway.
So let's go back, and after the challenge, there's 2 kinds of rewards. There was one that was a comfort reward, and the second one was an emotional item. Was this the first time that we've ever heard the term emotional item being given out at a immunity challenge?
You know what? Maybe I can't remember. I mean, I know that's what we're told what emotional item we can bring, so I'm used to the term. But yeah, you're right. That may be a new term for the viewers. But again, an emotional item. Again, I have to reference back. You know, Nick has a picture of himself. Jason has a stuffed bear or something, which was pretty cute for the big tough bounty hunter from Southeast Michigan having a little teddy bear, and then of course Nick having a picture of Nick.
I really liked the idea of Jason having a bear as his emotional item, because I feel like if he does go to a swap and he has this bear around him, he can draw in his family background to that and talk about his daughters and talk about that relationship. So I thought it was actually a pretty smart idea to do that in comparison to someone like Nick, who was so self-centered that he had a picture of himself. So we come back to the Brains Beach, and for all intents and purposes, there was a discussion whether they would, Liz and Peter that is, they're not going to go with Aubrey and Neil because they can't be trusted. They can't trust Neil, and they are targeting Neil. What are your thoughts on Neil? We haven't actually spoken about Neil at all so far, and he's been someone who's been a bit quiet. Neil, the ice cream entrepreneur. What are you making of Neil's game so far?
I don't know. I'm not sure why Peter feels so threatened by him. Him and Liz feel so threatened by him, but I don't know. I don't have his character dialed in yet either. Except I thought it was great when he said that when I think Liz and Peter or Liz was approaching Debbie about them going for Neil, and then everybody else moving their votes here just in case, he has an idol. And then I loved it when he said, this kind of came out of nowhere to me with his personality, but he said that all the whispers that are going around that he has an idol, the result is that they have to be punished. I think that's what he said. Neil was saying that I guess Liz and Peter had to be punished. So, but again, I don't know much about his personality yet. I think he's going to be, I don't really know. He's kind of like Joe to me. I don't really know what kind of social game that I see with them, with either one of them. So, but that they were targeting, obviously, they feel threatened. They feel somewhat threatened, but they don't feel threatened with Joe or Debbie.
I found it fascinating. I kind of felt maybe Liz and Peter saw Neil as maybe strategically, mentally at their level compared to the other 3, so maybe that's why they were targeting. Maybe they thought he was the biggest threat out of the ones that were remaining. But yeah, it was really fascinating that they decided to go for Neil after the first episode, when we saw that we had the 4 of them deciding that the young members of this tribe were going to go against the grandma and grandpa on the tribe.
Again, with going back with the way Neil was playing, and Peter, I guess Peter kind of felt like they could control Debbie and Joe. Where, like you said, I guess they feel like Neil is up to their intelligence level, that he may be a little bit harder to control. But you know what you saw last night or Wednesday night at the tribal council? Peter was bullying Neil. He was making fun of the man in the ice cream pants. I mean, that's not right. So he was making fun of that, and when he was talking about what the plan was, and then Peter said to him, "Well, it's not your plan." Who does that? See, when you start playing your game out like that, that's kind of what Jennifer did the week before. You start running your mouth, feeling, well, Jennifer actually was doing it to save herself. But when you start getting cocky and saying that kind of stuff, you know it's going to backfire. Well, obviously he doesn't know, but it always does. I can't see Peter staying in for the long run because I think he's unless he becomes very, very humble. I'm not sure if he's able to do that.
What I found very fascinating was that there was a line from Peter, and he says he's a pro at social interaction as being an ER doctor. But clearly he'd just been bullying and harassing Neil previous to that. So clearly he wasn't too aware socially of how his comments were going to impact on others in the tribe. And what I found really fascinating was that, and in the end they decided to go against what Liz had proposed, which was, Liz had said, let's do 2-2-2, split our votes. I found it quite ironic that in the end that they decided to go 2-2-2 against Liz and Peter. So we had that tied vote. What were you thinking at that stage, and who were you thinking might be on the chopping block?
Peter for sure. And actually, as I'm watching, I'm thinking, Peter's got to go. I mean, they could probably deal with Liz, but I thought maybe it was because Peter said that nice thing about Joe, being that he thought he could trust him, man of his word. Maybe that's why. I'm just thinking, didn't Joe vote for Liz? Didn't Joe vote for Liz? I think he did.
Yeah.
So I think maybe that saved him complimenting Joe. But I thought Peter 100% would have been the one I would have had to have gotten out of there.
So it was really fascinating in the end that they decided to go with Liz instead of Peter. Why do you think they chose Liz in the end and not Peter?
Well, again, I'm thinking maybe because Joe, Peter has said those nice things about Joe being able to trust him, and maybe Joe thought, hey, this may be, an alliance I can kind of use and pull in. Or maybe they figured, if there was some kind of a mix-up and they mixed the tribes up, maybe they thought Liz may do better with some of the other women, where Peter's just going to sink himself anyway, somewhere, no matter who he's with, probably. So, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. I guess maybe they feel like Peter's, just cocky enough that he'll drown himself by himself, where Liz may have a better social game.
So Liz is the one who ends up going. I know that for me and for you as well, T-Bird, which was really fascinating. We had both predicted her as our winner of this season. So watching and listening to Liz go, where do you think she went wrong? And why do you think that she was the person in the end who has left the game at this point?
Well, I think she was obviously very cocky and her social skills, you don't, these characters out here again are strong personalities, especially you're with the Brain Tribe. They've got all these people want to make their own decisions or feel like they're making their own decisions. Just like Debbie, when she talked to Aubrey, she just planted the seed. When you start dictating the way people are supposed to vote and what they're supposed to do, people don't like that. They don't like that. So, that's definitely what I think went wrong there.
Yeah, and she's gone, and I guess she's someone who has garnered a lot of attention since she has left. And we've been talking about this second chances again, having another second chances. Do you think that she's someone who would be in contention for a second chance?
Gosh, Ryan, if we were further into the season and I could see more of the players, because, you can't have, I guess you can have 18 and think all 18 should go back for a second chance.
Yeah.
But right now, so far, with 3 in, there's not a lot that I've seen there. Now again, I know her background is really very, very interesting, but the gameplay that I saw for 3 shows, I wasn't that impressed with as far as playing again, but maybe I just didn't see enough.
We see regularly some of these really interesting characters, and I know a couple of seasons ago, it might have been Worlds Apart, someone who I liked a lot pre-game was So Kim, and she left first. So sometimes we have these great characters who we just never really get to see play the game.
And then again, I think maybe Peter, God, and I know Liz is a fantastic character, and I even hate to say I wouldn't want to see her play again. It's just like, you know how Debbie's come out so strong the first 3 episodes, and if she was voted out in the 3rd episode, I'd say, oh yeah, we got to see Debbie again, or Ty, oh yeah, we got to see Ty again, or, oh yeah, or Jason, these strong personalities. Didn't get to see that with Liz. So if I had watched her a few more episodes, I'm sure I would have come out saying the same thing about Liz, but I just didn't get to see enough. I think Peter kind of overshadowed her a little bit with his cockiness. So it kind of took a little bit away, I guess, from her since they were teamed up, since they were the duo.
It's sad that she's gone, but I feel like there are so many interesting characters still left on the season that, yeah, I've been really fascinated by what's still going on. All right. So, T-Bird, one of the most interesting things that we've seen in the preview to the next episode is that they have talked about the Medivacs and how big it's going to be this year. There's been numbers thrown around on the internet community about how many Medivacs are going to be, but it looks like we might be having at least our first Medivac in this upcoming week. What are your feelings about Medivacs and how they impact the game?
It changes the whole dynamics for everything. Of course, number one, you worry about, the people that are being taken out, because to be pulled out of the game is to see the medical people come out there, it's really, 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 really serious. So, again, if you're, I know some people will be, you're thinking, well, shoot, only one person's going off this week, and they just left in a helicopter. So you feel like, oh, I dodged that bullet. But then there's the human part that thinks, wow, I mean, how serious did it get? So, if you've got an alliance with somebody, of course, you don't want anybody to be taken out injured or hurt. But then you think, God, that changes the whole gameplay too for these different alliances. So,
the doctor out there, I can't remember his name, but the doctor out there, he was one that it had to be really, really serious for them to make that call to evacuate. And they're calling in the helicopter, which we're seeing. So, I don't know, my prayers go out to the person. Hopefully they are safe. I think that I've seen everyone on social media make comments, so hopefully the effects of whatever has happened and does happen in this upcoming challenge isn't too severe, but our prayers go with that person, because it's heartbreaking to think that for a lot of these people, they've dreamt about coming out on this game, playing this game, and they're up to day 11 or day 12 and they're getting medevaced out. It's a horrible feeling. So hopefully whoever they are, maybe gets another chance somewhere down the track, but hopefully they are recovered from whatever serious thing has happened to them.
Yes, I agree. Now that might be somebody that you might look at and say, hey, that's a strong player. Second chances, absolutely. So we'll see. To be continued.
Yep, to be continued. So that pretty much wraps our recap for this week. I just had some questions on social media just to ask.
Okay.
For you as well, T-Bird. And the first one comes from a very regular listener of the show. His name is Zachary Chong, and he's always on our live cast. He's always around. And he asked, on our rankings cast question, we had, for Survivor Oz, we had T-Bird ranked at 116. What do you think about where we placed you, T-Bird, and what do you think would get you into that top 100?
Oh, gosh. Zachary, hey, thanks for the question. That's Zachary's question, right?
That was Zachary.
Hey, thank you, Zachary. Shoot, I'll take 116. I mean, I guess you always like to think, you'd love to move up in the top 100, top 50, top 10, or, however you can go. But again, I say, how many women have played? 200 and how many? Ryan, help me. You're a teacher. Help me.
It'd probably be around 230, I reckon.
30. All right. 230 women have played. Hey, if I'm halfway down the list there, how about that for the math, Ryan? Are you impressed?
Yeah.
Then I'll take it. I mean, shoot. Again, casting does such a phenomenal job. All the 230 women were top-notch women. So to be at 116 out of that, I'll take it. Absolutely. And to get in the 100, I would say if I get a chance to play again, hopefully that will maybe move me up the food chain.
I've got another question, and this question is from one of our Oslets. That's Cable, who I know you know very well.
Oh, yes.
And Cable asks, I think she would fit in any of these tribes. What tribe does she fit in, and what tribe does she think she would do well in?
Ooh. Oh, gosh. This is going to sound kind of crazy. You know, my job that I love, I am with different people every day. I work with different, crew members every day, different passengers every day. So I'd like to think as far as the social game, not looking at brains, brawn, or beauty, just looking at all these groups and their social game, I'd like to think that I could fit hopefully in any of them and be able to play, because of, again, I guess my job has helped me with that over the years. So I know, Cable, you're disappointed with that answer, but I'll tell you, looking at them, I'm going to say if I had to pick one, Cable, I'm going to go with brains. Not that I fit into the brains category, but only looking at the players. Just the players, not the category. That would not apply.
We see someone like Alicia, and she's in the Brawn tribe. I think if you can have some kind of connection to the general theme, that's okay. I don't think the themes are that important at the end of the day. They use them to set out originally, but what we would go by, and I guess it even comes back to Worlds Apart, where we had no collar, white collar, blue collar to describe ourselves. They're interesting the way that they decide to divide the tribes. From your original season of Africa, apart from the people who have come back, is there anyone else on your original season who you think would be great to get a second chance?
Oh, God. Now, I think a lot of my groups, so I think a lot of players would like to see that that have not played yet.
That have not played yet.
That have not played. Silas would be great. Kelly would be great. Let me think. Trying to think who's not played. I guess I would probably say Lindsay. Lindsay B, she's an interesting character.
Yeah.
Probably those would be my three.
I think it's really fascinating as well, and you mentioned someone like Silas and Kelly. When they first played this game, I'm just looking at their stats now, like they were 23 and 22, so 15 years later, they're 37, 38 years old, and I guess your life experiences and your perspective on things in general changes so much in that time, and I'm really fascinated. I'd really love to see more old school players come back into the game, especially those ones who were younger at the time or at different stages in their lives, because I think that what I really liked from this past season was watching someone like Kimi Kappenberg come into this season and play a really fascinating, really interesting game. And I know we haven't really talked much about Kimi, but did you have any relationship with Kimi prior to this game at all, T-Bird?
No, I think I'd met her, but no.
So I just found it really fascinating the way she came back in and she played, and for all intents and purposes, there was talk that if she had made it to the end, she was a really good chance of even getting votes or even winning. So I think that it was really excellent to see these older school players come back. Jeff Varner as well was terrific. He in his 4-episode arc was absolutely brilliant. To see more of these players come back, because as super fans of this show, a lot of us still remember watching Survivor, those original seasons, and I'm talking about Borneo, Australia, Africa. For me, those 3 seasons, I remember watching them intently every time they were on TV, and watching yourself on your season was just pretty amazing. So to be able to speak to people like you, and I've spoken to a few people from those first seasons, it's always, for me, I think that I have more of a fan mentality when I talk to people from those original seasons compared to the newer seasons. So,
thank you, Ryan. Well, I hope, again, because I enjoyed Second Chances as a fan watching it, because, like you say, watching the old school players come back, and Varner and Kimmy and Terry, and, I love the concept, and I think the fans liked it too, so hopefully we'll see a lot more of that, going forward.
Yeah, I definitely think we're going to see it again. I'm not sure when, but considering the success that they had and the season itself was so good, they will do the concept again, whether that's in a couple of years' time or down the track, maybe around 39, 40. We'll definitely see some kind of vote again.
Yeah, I think so too.
Cable asks, you were part of a tribe division, split down ages in Africa. Is it frustrating that younger Survivor players generally target the older players for just being old? We saw Brains initially talk about aligning that way before plans changed. Are the older generation given a fairer opportunity by the younger generation?
Yeah, I think so. Ryan, really, what I said earlier was when you're playing a game like this, anything you do to stick out, anything, that one thing, whether it's your age, whether you're whining, whether you're saucy, whether you're mean, whatever that one thing is that separates you from everybody else, from the majority, you're going to be a target. So if you're on a tribe and you're the oldest and there's nobody else doing anything, that's why I said you always like to see somebody else doing something. You're like, oh yeah, they're going to be gone before me, that's for sure. So, that's just the way it goes. Everybody needs a reason to vote for somebody, so
All right, that gets us to Ben's famous 5 last questions. Well, I've titled them the famous 5 because these are the questions that he gives to survivors to conclude our podcast, and I quite like them. So I'm going to start with the first one. Now that this is really fascinating, because now that this week our joint pick to win has gone, who do you believe at this moment is the person who is most likely to win this game?
Oh, good grief. Now here I'm going to sabotage somebody's game because I've already out. I hadn't, let's see, since I hadn't had much time to think about I'm going to go with Anna.
I like that pick.
No, I'm going to go with Michelle.
Michelle, I like that pick too. I like those girls. I like that alliance they formed. I think they're a strong alliance. I like what they are doing on their tribe, so I like those picks. What about someone who maybe is a bit under the radar at the moment? Who do you think could be a dark horse who could make a bit of a run late to try and get a victory in this game?
Well, actually, that was Michelle. That's
Michelle.
Why I picked Michelle. Yeah, same thing. Or okay, let's go with the dark horse. Would be Julia.
Yeah. I like that. I like that beauty threesome. I think we haven't seen enough of them yet, but I'm hoping coming into the next couple of episodes we'll start to see a bit more of them. Probably when we go down to 2 tribes.
Yeah.
Who do you believe, and I won't include Medivacs because we don't really know, but who do you think is going to be the next person to go?
Well, let's see. That would be the one I picked to win, Michelle, because I'm right on track for that. Okay, but okay. Seriously, I almost want to say Michelle just because I picked her to win now.
Yeah.
Peter. Yeah, Peter.
Question 4 was, and we've answered this already, what tribe would you have been on? I think you said you would be on the Brains tribe.
Yeah, but not because of Brains. Not because of Brains, just the personality. The older players with Debbie and with Joe, and I think I could have done okay, only because of the personality, not the intelligence level.
And our final question, as always, is which player this season do you believe is playing most like you would be if you were on this season?
Okay. Well, somebody that we're not seeing much of, because I played really quiet. I'm going to say probably Michelle.
Yep. Excellent.
Yeah. Well, Michelle.
Thank you so much for doing this with us today, T-Bird. I know Ben sends his love and Cable sends his love, and everyone at Oz is really excited to have had you on the podcast today. Is there anything else you want to talk about this season so far?
No, thank you so much for having me. I love talking with you guys every season. Again, my love to Ben. I hope he's feeling better. And Cable, Cable, I said hello. And I've got another friend named Lucky. Please tell Lucky I said hello as well.
Certainly.
And Ryan, nice to meet you.
No, it's fantastic to meet you. Okay, and before we go, T-Bird, do you just want to plug where we can find you on social media?
Yeah, my Facebook is Teresa Wright Cooper. And my Twitter is T-Bird Cooper.
Alright, thanks for that, T-Bird. And everyone can find me on Twitter at YesRyanB. And also make sure that you're following us on all the social media platforms. Survivor Oz on Facebook. I know we've got over 4,000 followers on there. Make sure you're checking out our website as well. I know last season I updated the website for Survivor Oz, and it's looking a lot better than it used to look. So if you haven't been on the website for a while, come back, have a look. There's always good top 10s on there, check those out. And also you can find us on Twitter at Survivor Oz. Until next time, see you later.